Joining us to discuss this further is retired Lieutenant General Karen Gibson, an advisor at Academy Security's Geopolitical Intelligence Group. Lieutenant General, thank you so much for your time. So there are quite a bit of conflicting messages about what is driving this latest escalation on the part of the U.S. How do you view this?
So that's a great question, Jennifer. The initial aims of the campaign were to conduct such destructive strikes against Iran's military and leadership that it would compel them to make concessions at the negotiating table that would lead to enduring curbs on their nuclear program. This latest phase is a battle for who will control Hormuz, a far more narrow aim made critical by the chokeholds that Iran has put in place on shipping that flows through the Straits of Hormuz. It is a battle for Iran saying that they insist that they will play a role and they will determine who goes through the Strait, and the United States seeking to restore the normal flow of international commerce through a strait that was previously free and open.
And we have seen the strikes now even expanding beyond just military targets, as we heard from our Stuart Livingston Wallace. Do you not see that as a complication of any sort of mediation efforts?
Well, I think before we can even get to mediation, we really need to achieve some kind of success in this aspect of the campaign. And whenever I look at what an adversary might do, I look at two aspects. One, what is their will and intent, their desire? What are they hoping to achieve? And two, what is their ability to do that? Their will and intent, clearly stated and consistently reiterated, is that they want to control traffic through the Straits. Their ability to do so is very difficult to eliminate, as your previous speaker said. The United States has had tremendous tactical success in destroying a lot of capability, but totally eliminating it, that's an incredibly high bar. Iran has a number of asymmetric advantages in this regard. It's one point in space, the Strait of Hormuz, that we seek to secure, but they have a vast geography from which they can launch attacks. And the kinds of one-way attack drones that they're using are relatively inexpensive, easy to replenish, easily concealed, and have limited signatures associated with them until they're actually launched. Completely eliminating that is very difficult. And so despite the precision and lethality of these American strikes, they've only made a dent in that capability. In terms of intent, I think there's been no success thus far. Iran continues to insist that they'll control the Straits. They continue to strike back at bases in Gulf partner nations, and they have made no indication that they are willing to budge in this regard.
Well, and we're now hearing some reports that Pete Hegseth has gone to Capitol Hill to ask for more funds to cover some of the war costs. So what do you see then as the greatest challenge for the U.S. military campaign as we are now in a 10th day of these escalatory strikes?
So I think the greatest challenge is that it is largely at this point a military campaign. It needs to be multifaceted. It should probably include some financial penalties. You know, I know we've gone back to invoking some recent sanctions against 7 entities as well as diplomatic efforts. And it's unfortunate that it's not a more multinational effort, because there are a couple of areas where I think people tend to forget that for the men that are leading the Islamic Republic, this is an existential threat for the survival of their state. And so there is an underestimation of their willingness to absorb pain, whether it is in the shape of years-long sanctions or punishing airstrikes. And so continuing to attack these assets that are being used to affect shipping is probably not going to be enough to change Iran's strategic calculus. One more facet that I would throw in this, the president can say the straits are open, Iran says they're closed, but who really at the end of the day determines the status of shipping through the straits is commercial shippers and the companies that insure them, as they weigh the potential for profit against the perception of risk. And Iran doesn't have to do much at all to raise the perception of risk. And that will be a very difficult matter to resolve and to restore commercial confidence that it's a consistent ability to sail through the straits, not something that is episodically protected.
And in terms of restoring, what do U.S. Gulf relations look like in the near term? How do you restore some of the confidence, if there ever were confidence, between some of these nations and the U.S.?
So I think it's not really, I wasn't thinking of it in terms of the confidence of Gulf allies. I was thinking in terms of confidence of business interests that are paying for the shipping costs or for insuring, vessels that are flagged from many, many nations. I do believe there is still a strong relationship between the Gulf partners and the United States, because there has to be. And this is another area of tremendous asymmetry in that they are the ones that are absorbing the cost of these strikes as Iran reaches out and retaliates against Gulf nations that are hosting or supporting the United States. Iran's strategy is to make the campaign so politically and economically untenable for the United States that the U.S. changes its campaign plan. And part of doing that is by punishing those states, by showing that the United States cannot protect them, and by trying to compel the Gulf states to pressure the United States to try a different tack.
Really valuable insights from you. Retired Lieutenant General Karen Gibson, advisor at Academy Securities Geopolitical Intelligence Group. We really appreciate your time. Thanks so much.